Welcome back to Culture Code English. I am so glad you are here today. Take a slow, deep breath, let your shoulders drop, get completely comfortable, and relax. Today, we are going to explore a deeply fascinating, daily, and sometimes shocking hidden code of American life. The mystery of the incredibly generous American return policy. Imagine this. You are standing in the customer service line of a massive American warehouse or department store on a Saturday afternoon. You look at the person standing in front of you. In their hands, they are holding a clear plastic container containing a watermelon that is completely half-eaten. When they reach the counter, they look at the cashier and say with a calm voice, "I would like to return this watermelon, please. It just wasn't very sweet." If you did not grow up in the United States, you might hold your breath, expecting a loud, angry argument. You expect the cashier to say, "Are you crazy? You ate half of it. You cannot return food after you have consumed it." But instead, the cashier does not look angry at all. They do not argue. They do not roll their eyes. They simply nod politely, scan the barcode, press a single button on their computer, and hand the customer a full cash refund. To many immigrants and international travelers, this experience is a profound cultural shock. In many countries around the world, once you buy an item, open the package, or consume a product, it belongs to you forever. The golden rule of business is no refunds, no exchanges. Once the money leaves your wallet, the transaction is closed. If a product is slightly imperfect, it is your problem, not the store's problem. But in the United States, satisfaction guaranteed is not just a nice slogan. It is a sacred commercial promise. You can buy a beautiful Christmas tree in December, keep it in your living room for 3 weeks, and then return it in January because it is dead. You can buy a designer dress, wear it to a weekend wedding party, and then return it on Monday for a full refund. You can buy a household plant, forget to water it so it dies, and return the dead soil in the pot to get your money back. Why do American businesses allow this? Why do they tolerate people who clearly abuse the system? The answer is not because American managers are soft or stupid. The answer lies in a deep, calculated cultural code known as consumer sovereignty and trust by default. By understanding this hidden code, you stop seeing these generous return policies as a strange, wasteful business mistake. You realize they are a powerful, invisible social contract built on mutual trust, consumer psychology, and the unique way that American businesses lock in your loyalty for life. Let us enter the first stage of our blueprint, understanding the 99-to-1 rule and the philosophy of trust by default. In many traditional cultures, business is built on suspicion. The seller naturally assumes that the buyer will try to cheat them, and the buyer assumes the seller is trying to overcharge them. Because of this mutual suspicion, both sides are always on guard. But modern American retail was built on a completely opposite philosophy. Start by assuming the customer is honest. This is called trust by default. When an American company designed their return policy, they ask themselves a simple mathematical question. Out of 100 customers, how many will actually try to cheat us, abuse the policy, and return a used, worn dress or a dead Christmas tree? The answer, proven by decades of research, is very small, usually only about 1 or 2% of people. The remaining 98 or 99% of people are fundamentally honest. They only return items if they genuinely do not fit, do not work properly, or if they are truly unhappy with their purchase. So, American businesses made a brilliant, highly profitable decision. They decided to make the return process completely effortless for the 99 honest customers, even if it meant losing some money to the one dishonest customer. The cost of those few returns is already calculated as a basic business expense. It is quietly baked into the price of every item on the shelves. Let me tell you about John. John had been a manager at a large home improvement retail store in Oregon for over 10 years. One sunny Saturday afternoon, a man walked into his store pushing a large lawnmower. The lawnmower was covered in grass stains. The blade was dull, and it was very clear that the man had used it to cut his grass all summer. The man looked at John and said, "I want to return this lawnmower. It just didn't cut my grass as cleanly as I hoped." A young, newly hired employee standing next to John felt his face grow hot with anger. He whispered to John, "Don't let him do it. He used our lawnmower all summer for free. This is cheating." But John simply nodded politely to the customer, processed the full refund of $300, and said, "Have a nice day, sir." After the customer walked out, the young employee was deeply frustrated. "Why did you do that?" he asked. John smiled warmly and put his hand on the young man's shoulder. "Listen to me carefully," John said. "In our business, trust is our most valuable asset. If we make returning items difficult, if we ask too many questions and make our customers feel like thieves, those 99 honest customers will feel stressed. They will buy less, and they will go to our competitors. But if we make returning effortless, they will trust us completely. They will buy more, and they will stay loyal to us for their entire lives." John pointed to the old lawnmower. "This dirty machine is a tiny cost of doing business, but the lifelong trust of those 99 families is where our real wealth comes from." That conversation revealed the deep, unseen code of American life to the young employee. He realized that in America, trust is not just a nice moral value. It is a highly calculated, incredibly profitable strategy. By trusting the customer first, businesses create a peaceful, frictionless world where people buy with confidence, return with ease, and build a lifelong connection of mutual respect. Let us move to our third step, the history of consumer sovereignty and the man who made the customer king. Today, we take easy returns for granted. But if we traveled back to the mid-19th century, we would find a very different, stressful shopping world. In those days, the golden rule of retail was a cold Latin phrase, caveat emptor, which means, let the buyer beware. Once you bought an item, the transaction was finished. If you brought a dress home and discovered a tear in the fabric, or if the color looked completely different in the sunlight, the store owner would simply laugh and say, "Not my problem. You should have checked it before you paid." But in the 1870s, a brilliant American businessman named Marshall Field decided to start a revolution in his giant department store in Chicago. Field believed that a store should not be a battleground between the buyer and the seller. It should be a place of service, comfort, and mutual respect. He introduced a shocking, beautiful new concept to the world. The customer is always right. He also gave his employees a legendary, simple command that changed the history of business forever. Give the lady what she wants. If a customer returned a product, even if she had already used it, Field's employees were ordered to accept it with a smile and offer a full refund. He understood that a single, happy customer would tell her friends, her family, and her neighbors about her wonderful experience. The short-term loss of one refund was actually a long-term investment in the store's reputation. Let me tell you about a famous event that happened in Marshall Field's Chicago department store in the 1880s. A young, ambitious clerk was standing at the fabric counter. A wealthy woman walked up, holding a piece of delicate, expensive silk lace. She had bought the lace the previous week, and she had clearly cut a small portion of it to use on her dress. The woman looked at the clerk and said, "I want to return the rest of this lace. The color does not match my gown, and I would like a full refund, please." The young clerk looked at the cut, ruined fabric and felt a wave of irritation. He pointed at the cut edge and said in a firm voice, "I am sorry, madam, but we cannot accept this. You have already cut and used a piece of this lace. It is damaged. We can never sell this to anyone else." The woman looked deeply embarrassed and upset. Just as they were about to start a loud argument, Marshall Field himself, who was quietly walking through his store, stepped up to the counter. He looked at the piece of cut lace, and then he looked at the distressed customer. Field smiled warmly, bowed politely, and said to the woman, "Madam, of course we will accept your return. My clerk is new here, and he is still learning our rules." Field turned to the young clerk and said with a calm, powerful voice, "Give the lady her refund and give her what she wants." After the customer happily left the store with her cash, Field called the young clerk to his office. The clerk was trembling, expecting to be fired. But Field looked at him with gentle, wise eyes. "Young man," Field said, "you were logically correct. The lace was cut and we lost money on it today. But do you know what we gained? We kept the loyalty of a woman who spends thousands of dollars in our store every single year. She will go home today and tell everyone she knows that Marshall Field's is the most honest, generous store in Chicago." Field smiled and added, "In this store, we do not sell lace. We sell trust. Never argue with a customer over the price of a piece of string." That simple lesson permanently shaped the American commercial mind. It established the absolute sovereignty of the consumer. When you walk into an American store today, and when a cashier accepts your return with an effortless smile, you are experiencing the living legacy of Marshall Field. You are being treated like royalty, not because of a modern law, but because of a beautiful, century-old promise of mutual respect and lifelong partnership. Let us enter the fourth part of our blueprint, the economic paradox of the return policy and the freedom of fair play. To many business owners, offering a lifetime or a 90-day unconditional return policy sounds like a financial suicide. They think, if we make returning so easy, won't everyone just buy our items, use them, and return them for free? We will go broke. But the hidden economic reality is completely the opposite. Generous return policies are actually one of the most powerful sales engines ever created. This works because of a psychological phenomenon known as buying anxiety. When you shop at a store with a strict, difficult return policy, you are afraid to make a mistake. You look at a television or a vacuum cleaner and you hesitate. You think, what if it doesn't fit my living room? What if it is too loud? I should wait and think about it. Because of this anxiety, you often walk out of the store empty-handed. The store loses a sale. But when a store offers a zero-risk, unconditional return policy, your buying anxiety completely disappears. Your brain feels safe. You think, I'll just buy it now. If it doesn't work out, I can always bring it back next week. You purchase the item impulsively. And once that item is inside your home, another powerful psychological effect kicks in. the endowment effect. The moment a product enters your house and sits in your living room, your mind begins to feel ownership over it. You stop seeing it as a store's product. It becomes my television or my rug. Furthermore, most people are fundamentally busy and a bit lazy. Once they have the item at home, the effort required to pack it back up, drive to the store, and stand in line feels too high. So, overall sales skyrocket by 30 or 40%, while the actual rate of returns remains extremely low. By removing the friction of buying, businesses actually make far more money than they lose to refunds. For many immigrants and newcomers, however, using this policy can create a deep, silent psychological barrier. They feel a sense of return shame. They worry that returning a used item is dishonest or that the cashier will judge them. Let me tell you about Yuki. Yuki had recently moved to Seattle to start a new life. She bought a high-quality vacuum cleaner from a major retail store. When she took it home and used it, she discovered that while it cleaned beautifully, the engine was incredibly loud. The high-pitched noise terrified her small cat, who hid under the bed whenever Yuki turned it on. Yuki wanted to return the vacuum cleaner, but her hands trembled just thinking about it. In her home country, returning a used appliance simply because it was too loud was seen as deeply shameful. She imagined the cashier looking at her with cold eyes and asking difficult, embarrassing questions. For 2 weeks, she left the vacuum cleaner in her closet, feeling guilty and anxious. Finally, she decided to face her fear. She packed the vacuum cleaner back into its box, drove to the store, and stood in the customer service line. When she reached the counter, she looked at the young cashier with a nervous face. I would like to return this vacuum cleaner, please," Yuki whispered. The cashier scanned the box and asked with a neutral, polite voice, "Is there any specific reason for the return?" Yuki swallowed hard. "It works perfectly," she said, "but the motor is just too loud. It terrifies my cat. I am so sorry." The cashier looked up, smiled warmly, and said, "Oh, please do not apologize. We want you and your cat to be happy in your home. That is exactly why we have this policy." The cashier pressed a button, processed the full refund of $150, and handed Yuki the receipt. "Have a wonderful day, and I hope you find a quieter one," she said. Yuki walked out of the store feeling a massive wave of relief and freedom. She realized she was not taking advantage of the store. She was simply participating in a mutual contract of trust. Because the store treated her with such incredible respect, Yuki went back to the same store the next weekend and bought a quieter, more expensive vacuum cleaner. She became a loyal customer for life because she had experienced the beautiful, stress-free freedom of American fair play. How can you use this knowledge to navigate the unique American return policy? The secret is simple. Accept the gift of trust, but respect the rules of fair play. When you go about your week in America, try to see the big picture. When you stand in a customer service line to return an item, you are not just getting your money back. You are participating in a proud, century-old commercial tradition. You are experiencing how American businesses solve the stress of shopping by choosing trust by default. How they established the absolute sovereignty of the consumer through Marshall Field's simple promise, and how they turn the financial cost of refunds into a powerful engine of lifelong customer loyalty. You do not need to feel return shame. As long as you are honest and respect the spirit of fair play, returning an item is your birthright as a consumer in America. It is a natural, seamless part of the social contract. When you use this policy with confidence and honesty, you are telling the businesses, "I trust you, and I appreciate your trust in me." This mutual respect is the very glue that holds the American marketplace together. Look how far you have already come in this video. You have been listening to this real, natural, and deep English story for many minutes now. You did not have subtitles on, and yet you followed the narrative effortlessly. Your ears are naturally adapting to the speed, the intonation, and the flow of the language. You are doing an amazing job. Be patient with your brain. Language learning is not a sprint. It is like watching a beautiful oak tree grow. Every story you listen to, every cultural blueprint you explore, and every minute you spend here is quietly building your ear muscles and making you a stronger, more confident English thinker. Consistency is the ultimate key to success. You do not need to study for hours until you feel completely exhausted. Just 10 or 15 minutes of active, quiet listening every single day is enough to create extraordinary results over time. If you enjoyed discovering the secret history and psychology of the American return policy today, and if you are ready to make mindful listening a normal part of your daily English journey, I want you to make a simple, beautiful promise to yourself. Leave a small mark of your progress in the comments below right now. Type, "I am learning every day" in the comments. By writing these 5 words, you are telling your brain that you are growing. You are celebrating a small victory on your path to natural fluency. Thank you so much for spending this peaceful, meaningful time learning with me today on Culture Code English. Keep listening, keep practicing with patience, and never lose your curiosity. I look forward to exploring another beautiful piece of our world with you very soon. Have a wonderful, relaxing evening, and keep using English every single day.